Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the ItCast, Real Talk on Sex. I am your host, Nika Sherrell. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast, which increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. And through this work, we're creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. This episode is brought to you by the House of Sherrell, and you can check out our online store at triggerhappytoy.com. We are also brought to you by the International Institute for Sexual Empowerment, a 501c3 that is creating a safe space to talk about sex. Any upcoming events you're looking for, you can check out our calendar at nikasherrells.com or also the itcast.com. There's a tab on there where you can check out our calendar and see what we're up to. If you would like to have one-on-one coaching with me, please visit my Calendly to book a free connection session. I want to hear from you. I want to know how I can serve you and how we can create community together. Click on get access to our bonus content on Patreon. There we go. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. All right, let's dive in. So, this week's episode is Real Talk on the Myths of Desire and Arousal. And today in the booth, we have Susan Bratton. Susan is known as the intimacy expert to millions. She is a renowned advocate for lifelong intimacy and passion. She has developed numerous techniques to transform sex into meaningful lovemaking and is a leading sexual biohacker. Susan co-founded Personal Life Media, Inc., offering heart-connected lovemaking techniques and sexual regenerative therapies, and The 20 LLC, which manufactures organic supplements enhancing sexual vitality. A best-selling author and prolific speaker, Susan has published 44 books and programs on intimacy and frequently appears on major TV networks. A documentary about her life will debut in 2025. You can discover more about that at TheGift.film and get her tips at betterlover.com. Susan, welcome to the show.
Nika, I am here. So happy to be with you again. Love to see your beautiful smiling face. And I'm so happy we're talking about desire and arousal because I think there are a lot of patriarchal overlays that we need to kick to the curb today and start talking about matriarchal pleasure. Because if you don't serve the goddess, you're not serving anything.
Ooh. I love that. I love that. So I love this. So let's actually talk a bit more about matriarchal pleasure.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to think about the fact that when you're a fish and you swim in water, you're not even really aware that you're in water. You don't even know there's such a thing as air that you could be walking around in. It's just what you do. You're surrounded by it. And I think that we are surrounded by patriarchal sexual mores. And they come from, the strongest ones come from religious repression and the control of religion around the female body and the oppression of the female body. And then that kind of like seeps into our politics as well. With the recent overturn of Roe versus Wade, with the inability to sign contraception into our national law this week, we are going backward in women's bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
The next thing that happens is that because of repression, we are made to feel like we are dirty, shameful, guilty, slutty, and that represses our sexuality. And we are also, because we have a lack of sex education, only the merest modicum of sex education for most people, and because our parents never learned anything, therefore never taught us anything, we're working in the dark. And when you work in the dark, you work in fear. When you work in the light, you work in power. And we're in fear. And fear is not a very good recipe for turn on, as you know. So there's that. And then because of that repression, there's a lot of pedophilia, sexual abuse, rape culture, etc. mostly white religion, frankly. And I blame everybody. But there's a lot of harm against women. The next thing is that most of pornography, 96% of pornography, according to research in Time magazine, shows acts of degradation toward women.
Mm-hmm.
96%. And everybody's getting raised on porno. They think that's what sex is. They think that's you've seen the articles recently about, young girls getting choked and things like that. It is a very, very sexy thing when your lover holds the sides of your neck and even brings their palm up here under the soft part of your chin and pins you down and holds you down and pulls your hair and ravishes your body. That's a beautiful thing. But when they're having sex with you and pounding you and suffocating you, and they think that's what you want, we've gone off the fucking rails. So there's that. And then take into account that every movie you've ever seen is boy meets girl and they fall in love and they kiss for 2 seconds and then she falls down on the bed, he pulls up her pants, her top is still on, and he penetrates her with zero warm-up. Stack on to that, I think you can't dismantle it until you talk about it. Stack on to that we call sex. When we say sex, we think intercourse.
Yep.
So we have this notion of foreplay and sex, and it's the foreplay that the female body needs and intercourse. Add to that, and I'll stop soon, I promise, but I'm going to grind the pain just a little longer. So, because I did some ball slams in my workout today, and I'm full of testosterone. So I'm out for bear today. So add to that the fact that when women walk in this world, the female-bodied of us, those born with vulvas, those born with estrogen dominance, we're the prey. And those born with penises who are testosterone dominant, they are the predators. So we're predated. So we need security and safety and relaxation to begin our arousal. And add to that, at a physiologic perspective, that the penis owning testosterone dominant Homo sapien has about as much erectile tissue as a banana. You can pretty easily think about a penis as a banana, and half of it sticks out of the body and half of it sticks down and in toward the testicles. And the entire thing is filled with erectile tissue. I could fill up the palm of your hand with the erectile tissue from a penis. Then I could take that erectile tissue and put it in my other hand, and that's how much would be in a vulva. We have as much erectile tissue as our male-bodied partners do, but it's in a lot of nooks and crannies inside the vulva. The clitoral complex, the urethral complex, and the perineal complex are our three erectile tissue chambers that are wrapped around the vaginal cavern, but they require 20 minutes to get the blood flowing into them and to get them plump. So we get our lady boner, our clit boner, whatever you want to call it, our clitoral erection.
Those exist.
And say again.
Those exist for everybody out there.
Exactly. And people who are penis owners, they can get an erection within a couple of minutes. Add to that they masturbate very frequently because they've got this semen that needs to get blown through so that they get fresh semen. The female body, the vulva owning body, doesn't necessarily have the desire to have that much masturbation. Plus, we didn't even get a name for our parts when we were growing up, so we don't even know how to do it or what to touch. And so we just have all of these different things that kind of conspire against our pleasure. We're pushed to sex. It's pushed to intercourse. It's too fast. It's in the dark. It's fast and furious. It doesn't take into account all of the things that we need. And so I'll stop for a second because I know next is, okay, well, what is matriarchal sex? And I can lay that out, but I want to give you a minute.
Well, I love that. So actually, I want to dial back just a little bit and
Thought
look
you might.
deeper into what we learned growing up about the opposite sex. So you touched on
Mhm.
that a bit, and I thought that was a really, really powerful statement. So if we could kind of dig a little deeper into these concepts that we're taught and how we can begin dismantling those belief cycles.
Well, I don't think a lot of us were taught very many things at all. The PP goes into the JJ or the Weezer or the whatever silly word you talk about, and baby's made, and so don't ever let that thing get near you, and don't ever let anything come out of that thing and get on you, because then your life is ruined. And so we also have a fear of semen rather than an embrace of it, because we also don't have easy access to contraception. And I think that's too bad, because semen is actually super healthy for you. And it has over 20 different components that are good for your partner's body. For example, spermidine, spermine, putrescine, zinc, testosterone, serotonin, luteinizing hormone. These are just some of the highly beneficial components of semen that reverse 9 of the 12 hallmarks of aging. They lengthen our telomeres. They're good for autophagy, which cleans out cellular debris and keeps us younger. Young cells don't get diseases like old cells do. And we're very symbiotic. Whether it's whatever genders come together, sex is an extremely healthy thing, and we're never taught about how it's an endocrine cascade of healthy feel-good neurotransmitters, and a generation of oxytocin, which is the antidote to cortisol, which is what happens when we get stressed. We have cortisol, which ruins our sleep at night, which ruins our day the next day. There are all kinds of cognitive functional benefits as well, from the orgasmic
Mhm.
blood flow that is created to the brain when we have orgasms. And then we're only taught that there's one kind of orgasm, and that's a patriarchal orgasm as well, Nika. It's that old Masters and Johnson
Yes.
chart that we've all seen in the sexpert business, which is, you climb up, you get arousal, you climb up, you have a climax, and then you fall off a cliff and you have this refractory period. And this refractory period is the rest that you need afterward. And so many women are running around struggling to achieve a single orgasm, and then they're one and done. And frankly, most 90% of that is simply a lack of knowledge and limiting beliefs, and a misunderstanding of how the human body, not just the
Yeah.
female body, can orgasm in wildly and massive amounts of pleasure. There are over 20 kinds of orgasms that the Homo sapien can experience. We all can experience all of the orgasms. The only different one is that in the male body, there is a prostate, and in the female body, there is a urethral sponge, but they are basically very similar functions in a lot of ways. Men ejaculate and urinate out of their penis. Female bodies ejaculate and urinate out of their urethral canals. They just don't stick out. They're at the end of the opening, the portal, the vestibule to the vaginal opening. They're just above that. And so much of my work is teaching women and their partners how to have all the varieties of orgasms, because, and male partners too, all their kinds, like, anytime somebody says to me, "Oh, I can't orgasm from intercourse," or, "Oh, I can't have nipple gasms. My nipples aren't sensitive," or, "What's a coregasm?" Or, like any of these types of things, they're literally all learned skills.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to know what you're going for. And then you start doing it, and your body gets some neural pathways laid down. And over time, it becomes more and more pleasurable. And pretty soon, you're having 10, 15 different kinds of orgasms during a lovemaking session, because you understand the inputs required to play the instrument of your body to make it sing an orchestra of orgasm rather than just one flat
Mm.
note.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And thank you for going deep into the conversation around the different types of orgasms.
Yeah.
It's really, really fascinating to hear that. And this is one of the things that I want to share. So one time I had an orgasm from having my ear stimulated.
Nice.
And I was not expecting that. It was kind of like,
Ah,
wow, it just came out of nowhere. So
yeah.
looking at the different types of ways in which the body can engage and be aroused.
Yeah.
We talked about the cycles of arousal and how women we climax differently. One of the things that came up is I feel like we know more about women's pleasure now because we try harder and we spend more time with it. There's
Mm,
that myth that like, oh, well, women just don't enjoy sex or, it's again for procreation. There's all those narratives. And because we're spending more time engaging and exploring in what pleasure really means for
mhm.
humanity, now we have all of these other amazing things available.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'll say is that every year in January, I do a lot of sex trend podcasts and appearances. I like to watch the trends. I have that kind of a mind where I like to look at vast landscapes and organize them for people. I feel so fortunate that that's one of the ways that my brain works. And one of the things that I've noticed is I teach three things. There are three legs. The most stable stool
Mhm.
is a three-legged stool. A four-legged stool can tipple from side to side, but a three-legged stool can be very, very strong. And the three legs of the stool are techniques, pleasuring skills, like how do I come from? How do I have how do I eat a pussy? How do I suck a cock? How do I fuck? Whatever it might be. How do I give Nika some more eargasms? So we have, let's get you some. So that's number one. Number two is, how do I ask for what I want? How do I worship and adore? How do I share my fantasies? How do I share favorite frames? What are all of what's the ascension model of communication, of bedroom communication, of sex talk? Not just dirty talk, but pillow talk, sensual talk, fantasy sharing. There's a lot of skills there that are easy to learn. This is the thing about sex. Sex is super easy to learn, and you accelerate through it really quickly if you become a person who cares about their sexuality and studies it, but it never stops giving. There's no end. It's asymptotic. You'll never reach the end of what you can learn about sex, which is one of the wonderful things about it. It is a mastery level possibility. The third leg of that stool is what I would call intimate wellness. And that is everything from what you need to do to stay safe from STIs. You do not want them. It is, do not be cavalier about, oh, I'll just take some antibiotics. Oh, fuck no. You don't want to get STIs. I'm the chief advocacy officer of a company called Basis DX, and they have the state of the art STI testing kit. It's a home collection kit. You keep them at home like a COVID test. Then when you need one, you take the kit, you shoot it back to them, and within 24 to 48 hours, you've got a full test panel of results. And you can keep a couple at home so that when you want to take a test, you're getting it very quickly, which is one of the things I really like, because trying to get into your doctors, trying to get into things, it's hard to go out and get appointments. It takes time. So I like that. So it's everything from STI testing to um, all the stuff that goes wrong with our bodies, everything from UTIs and vaginal microbiomes and prostate issues and urination problems and, all the stuff in that era, but also then the atrophying of the genitals, the aging of the genitals, the difficulty achieving climax, the loss of sensation, the loss of erectile function, the shrinkage that comes with aging, all of those things. That's really in the sexual regenerative area. And you can fix almost anything. You can fix anything. I'm going to say you can fix anything. At this point, we have the technology. And then that moves all the way into sexual biohacking, which is making what you have even better. That's like male and female enhancement.
Okay.
So, for example, one of the things that they call me the queen of peen, because one of the things that I like to do is I like to teach men how to use a vacuum erection device, a penis pump, so
Oh.
that they can restore atrophy and then go on to actually enlarge their penis. But you can do that to the clitoris as well.
Mhm.
So many people like clitoral enlargement. I personally do. And so I use a vacuum pump, a clitoral and vulval vacuum pump. And I've had PRP, and I've had my own stem cells injected into all of my genital erectile tissue, and I've got a banging little clit boner. And what I like about that is that the bigger and meatier your clit is, when it gets that blood flow from the stimulation, and the stimulation of your nipples, your mouth, your full body, and your genitals, all helps pop that clit. And when you have a nice clit boner, it's bigger, it has more surface area, which is why you want to get an erection as a woman, no matter how big it is. I'm just a silly girl that likes to have a big clit boner because I like to just do shit that's fun and see where it goes and what happens, and I can, and it's what I do. But when you have full engorgement, when your pussy is just like so lush and filled with blood and lubrication and ejaculation, and you're just like this honey pot, it is incredible, the quality of the orgasms that you have. And so that's really what I would consider to be biohacking, sexual biohacking, which is taking what you've been God given and making it even better. It's the same as bodybuilding. You know, you can have an arm, or you can have an arm that pops some biceps. You can have some strength in it. And that's what I like to have, is essentially, you know, like strong genitals that really, really work well. And so those three things, the techniques, the communication skills, and the sexual wellness, are a big part of what you can kind of focus on in your life. And when you have skills, that's nice. You want to learn all 20 kinds of orgasms. You want to do all these different things. But what I like is, I like people to think about it more like not just collecting data, collecting information, but using it by having a lot of erotic play
Mhm.
dates.
Yes.
And erotic play dates are what I call it. It's just a silly little phrase I came up with, which is basically that you should have a sex life bucket list. I've created this thing. It's at sexlifebucketlist.com. And maybe you can put that in the show notes. And it has all 20 kinds of orgasms for the male and the female body, for the penis and vulva owning bodies. But
Hmm.
it also has another, 28 different really fun things you can learn solo pleasuring or partner pleasuring. And so instead of thinking, oh, I got to learn all this stuff, just go do it. Oh, okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And this brings me back to my answer to what you just said. Believe it or not, I still remember. And that is a friggin' miracle, number one. And number two, the answer is that what women want most to learn how to do is to find and activate their G spot so they can have female ejaculatory experiences.
Mhm.
And they want to learn how to have orgasms from intercourse. What do men generally want to do? They want to do whatever she wants to do, number one, because men will give up their pleasure for their partner's pleasure. They really will. They're not selfish, and they don't mean to be. They just don't fucking know what to do, because we don't have any sex education, and it's all been patriarchal bullshit. And the second thing is that they want to have P-spot orgasms. They want to find their prostate, which I'm really glad about, because I teach men how to use prostate massage tools, and I highly recommend them, because guys get prostate cancer, and it could
Mhm.
be potentially even prevented with enough blood flow into that prostate area,
Mm.
and movement and blood flow and nutrition. And so they want to learn how to find their P spot and have P spot orgasms. And they want to learn how to become multi-orgasmic men. They want to have full body energy orgasms and ejaculatory choice. So they're not just a slave to the too soon to happen ejaculatory orgasm. They want to learn stamina and full body male multiple orgasmic abilities. And so it's really fun to see what people want when they go through the sex life bucket list. And that's kind of where people are right now. And men are starting to wake up to the fact that they just didn't even know they were multi-orgasm. They didn't even know. They just thought an orgasm was when they ejaculated. So I was like, that's what I see in porn, So that's what they think it is. And
Right.
so the men in my world are like, oh, fuck no, I want to do them all. Let's go. I don't have it all. I don't do all 20. How do I do it? Nipple gasms, I'm open to it. They're like really, really getting good about it, which is great.
I love that. I mean, what you're talking about is sexual fitness. Oh, there's that, like you said, bodybuilding, really having all of the pieces in alignment to work well. That makes a huge amount of sense. I think about how when you were talking about the whole stimulation mouth, everything else, how that can lead to arousing the genitals. And one of the things that I know is that the nerve chain that starts in the armpit goes through the nipples, down the abdomen, and into the genital area. So all of this is a part of the arousal erogenous zone. So it's very, very exciting. And when you talk about things like coregasms, or we're talking about eargasms, or all the rest of that stuff, like it's the same nerve chain. So why couldn't it work? Why wouldn't it work? I love that. And also the idea of being able to learn and do all of those different things, like that's the bucket list. I love that concept. I love it.
Yeah, I want to know what's on your sex life bucket list when you get a chance to do it. And when you go to Sex Life Bucket List, what happens is you get a PDF that you download. I don't keep your information. Like, I don't know what your bucket list is. You have to tell me. Luckily, lots of people tell me, because I'm always like, tell me what's on your list. But you get that. And then I did a 40-minute video, and that's your first erotic play date. So you and your lover, you cuddle up in bed, you crack that laptop open, you got your 2 printouts, and you got your little TV trays, and you got your pencils. And then on it, I have it right here, actually, I'll show it to you. On it, you just, you mark each thing an A, a B, or a C. And so they're listed out here, and I give you 48 erotic play dates. And then when you write A, B, or C next to them, and A is, oh yeah, that's going on my sex life bucket list. I've been talking about why don't we do it? B is, baby, it's not for me, but if you want to do it, I'll do it with you. Of course, I'm gonna help you with that. And C is, it's not for me right now. Never say never, because you used to think, why would anybody want to get a spanking as sexy? And now you're masturbating to it. So, you change, you evolve, you want to change and evolve, you want to grow. And so things you look at now and you're like, why would anybody do that? Now you know why. You're like, oh, because it's hot and I can't stop thinking about it.
Yes. And the body changes, just like the mind changes, the body changes, the needs change. You talked about the difference in stimulation and I guess receptivity. So all these things differ, they vary. I can think of a few things that I was never gonna do when I was younger that now I'm like, okay, no, yeah.
Oh, well, now you have to say what they are. I want to hear.
Oh God.
Come on.
Why?
This is yours. This is your show, and we want to know.
Well, I will absolutely say that I was a 100% no to anal for so long. So long. Yeah. And I feel like it's very common, especially when you're looking at the way in which sex is taught, the way we look at porn, the way we have all these other social norms and constructs that tell us how things have to be.
I'm not going to get my ass banged.
Right. Yeah. Very easy turn off.
Yeah.
But learning what it actually is to be able to stimulate and dilate and arouse those different areas, it's a completely different experience. And they never show you fluffing in porn. They never show you all the prep that goes up to that one moment. So it's very, very it's very interesting to really think about it in retrospect. And then on my bucket list, number 1 on my bucket list is squirting. I hear it's a thing. I hear it's a thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. So I think I gave you access to all my books and programs already, but if I didn't, I'll make sure that I get that done for you.
Thank you.
One of the programs that I've been publishing for over a decade with Tallulah Sulis, you should have her on your show. I'll introduce you if you'd like me to, is a program called Female Liquid Orgasm. And basically, what Tallulah teaches, she is an international squirtologist, and she is wonderful at teaching the gentle art of female ejaculation. And first, she shows you G-spot de-armoring, and then she shows you the techniques for hands, for penises or dildos, for toys, for self-ejaculation, for partnered ejaculation. She shows you sex positions that'll work better than others, all kinds of things. And that program has really stood the test of time. I've taught over 10,000 people how to ejaculate. And it is something that all female bodies can do. All bodies can do. Everybody ejaculates, male and female. Everybody across the, all of the varieties, every kind of body ejaculates. And it is a wonderful release. It is also something that some people do naturally, but most people learn how to do it. And it is actually done nothing like they do it in porn. Nothing. I had a young woman who was a friend of my daughter's visiting my daughter, and she said, Could I talk to you about sex? And I'm like, sure, baby, of course. What do you need? And no one was around, and we sat down out on the deck here in the sunshine, and she said, well, and she's 27. She said, I think I might be asexual. I'm worried that I might be asexual. And I said, okay, tell me why. What's going on? And she said, well, I've never really, my mom and I have never really been able to talk about sex. She comes from the old country, and it's a very taboo and uncomfortable discussion for her. And so I don't think I've known much about it. And I've had sex with people, and it's been okay, but I've never really had an orgasm with a partner. And, I've squirted, but it wasn't really good for me. And I just think maybe I'm just not the kind of person who should have sex. And I just went very, very patiently through all of the myths and misunderstandings about her desire and her libido and her arousal. And I talked to her. First of all, I said, sexuality is a bell curve, and there are some people who are on that end of that spectrum where they just do not like to even be touched. But I don't think that's you. And I don't think you're asexual. I think that you just haven't had good sex yet. She said, well, all my girlfriends talk about how great sex is, and I've never really experienced that. And I said, well, in the grand scheme of things, you're quite young, and you've had some partners who didn't know what they were doing either. The second thing is that you didn't have what I would consider to be a release of your divine nectar, a release of your feminine waters, a release of your amrita, in a reverential and loving way with heart connection, in the comfort and safety. What you had was a party trick that a boy learned on porn, and you can affect the body by going, and fluid will come out. But that is not at all what female ejaculation is. That is a motherfucking insult to our femininity. You know what I mean? Like, it pisses me off, Nika.
Yeah.
To have that be what people think is female ejaculation. It's just like, no, stop it. World, stop the world. Stop rolling those cameras. Stop doing that. Have those kids stop watching that shit. The thing that pisses me off is that I can't advertise female liquid orgasm. I can't advertise it. I can't even buy ads for it. Where am I going to advertise it? On porn? Who's going to buy it on porn? Nobody, because they don't even think that porn is what sex is. It is unbelievable how much actual sexual pleasure is censored.
Yes.
So I told her how it actually works. I talked to her about her arousal cycles and how it takes her 20 or 30 minutes when she feels loved and safe and turned on and taken care of. And all of that has to be in place first. And then I talked to her about her vulva, and I gave her all the vulval anatomy, and I told her about all the parts, and then I explained what ejaculation is and where it comes from, and that everyone can do it, and it's simply a learned skill. And I taught her how to, how to do it, what she would need to release her feminine waters, why it's such an important part of our own, just like
Mhm.
taking up space, getting things wet,
Mhm.
squirting our fluids, our essential fluids out into the world to be appreciated, to be respected, to be loved for our feminine donation. You know what I mean? And so she left that conversation with hope and direction. And I told her too, you have to train every lover you're with. You're either training people implicitly or explicitly.
Yeah.
And when you train them implicitly by taking no action and accepting what happens and not giving guidance and not establishing your boundaries, hey, this is my edge. Let's play full out right up to the edge of it and have an incredible time, because I can trust you not to walk over that edge. So I'm not going to worry, because you know what I don't want to do and you're not going to do it. So I'm going to feel safe enough to allow myself to be truly seen, felt, tasted, smelled, loved, touched, celebrated, everything. And I wish I could have recorded that conversation, because I feel like in some ways, every woman just needs like all those fundamentals of how our bodies are just so different
Mhm.
and yet so incredible. And so I will send you my G Spot toy guide, because it's at gspotjoy.com. And when you get that guide, one of the things that I did that nobody fucking does is I actually, and it's kind of what would I call it? Homegrown video, because it's literally homegrown video. But I had my partner make me ejaculate with multiple toys and videotaped it so that you can see how to use the toys correctly,
Mhm.
because those toys can be dangerous on delicate vulval tissue. And the manufacturers, what are they going to do? They can't like give you how-to guides. They can't do explicit videos and things. Like where are they going to run those? Where are they posting that? You know what
Right.
I mean? And so the G Spot Joy Guide, it says, if you want this, click here, and then you get it. So I don't force it on anyone, right? But if you want to see exactly how to use those toys really help. But you should always start with fingers first, because the tips of our fingers have more nerve endings than anything but our clitoris. They are the most sensitive part of our body, and they're very well honed to sensation and feel. And when you come up inside the vaginal cavern, you really, and there's no spot, it's poorly named. It's a tube of tissue. And it needs to be very slowly awakened and opened and filled with fluid, with blood.
Mhm.
From blood comes down into your pelvic bowl and it fills that tissue up. And then when you stroke that, you'll start to hear this kind of squishiness. And then you will be able to guide your partner, or do it yourself. And the best way to do it yourself is on your knees on a waterproof blanket. And you'll be able to reach in there and you'll be able to stimulate yourself to release that water. But toys can be dangerous for people who use them too hard. Everything's so hard in porn that people think you're supposed to wail away on your poor little lady bits. But I'll make sure you get that, because it has a world of different ideas and options for you. And I find that I ejaculate when I am relaxed and comfortable, well hydrated,
Mhm.
and when it's really based on relaxation for me, more than almost anything else. And remember too that for us women, we're always on a 28-day cycle with the moon, even after menopause. And sometimes we want more pressure, sometimes less pressure, sometimes we have the energy for things, sometimes we don't. And so it's very mood related for most of us women to be able to allow ourselves to let go and surrender into that release, that beautiful release that we should all have the lucky opportunity to have. So I hope that you'll pursue that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I know there was a lot of reaction over here from me at that one point where you were talking about not being able to advertise female pleasure.
Yeah.
It is such a taboo. People don't understand the amount of Viagra, Cialis,
Right.
everything, commercials and things out there, and the complete lack of conversation and the taboo around women's pleasure. I don't think people understand that from the patriarchal sense point of view, that women's pleasure always ends up looking like porn. It always ends up being put in that category. And that's some of the least pleasurable things because of the male gaze. So it's almost like it's too arousing to be okay.
Well, hey, if we were educated, we
Hmm.
had income parity, and we had all the pleasure we wanted and didn't necessarily even need a man for it, what do we need them for? They got to keep us down. It's all about control. Hey, if we're not suckling off the teat of capitalism, working for shitty minimum wage, while all the men at the top take off all the money and don't reinvest in the businesses, if we're burdened by student loans, if we can't even afford to rent an apartment, if the only kind of healthcare we can get is emergent or a pill that puts a band-aid on a systemic issue. If we live in a food desert and all we have access to is ultra processed addictive food that gives us type 2 diabetes and kills us off, what would happen if we were actually healthy, happy, educated, empowered female people?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then we would start taking things over, and then we would distribute it fairly, and people would have a chance to live good lives with clean air and clean water and a good education. But that ain't going to happen because the billionaires run our media and they run our country. And that's why there has never been a more important time to vote. You can't vote on a Palestine issue right now because that they've been fighting for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, but we're literally fighting for our democracy right now. So we have to vote. We have to vote for the old man who has a heart, who
Mm.
cares about us, at least way more than the alternative,
Man,
the
no,
racist man.
no kidding.
Thank you for my political moment. Listen, we got to talk about this shit right now. You know it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. My goodness. Okay, so we are actually close to time. Please
Oh.
tell us. I know. Tell us more about your work, how we can find you, what we can do. I know you sprinkled a bit of it throughout, but take us home.
Okay, come on home to mama. Well, I hope that you liked me. I hope that I didn't insult anyone or I wasn't too, like, because I really am right now. It's like, I feel I have this, at I'm going to be 63 next month, Nika.
Yes.
And, I just I pay attention to what's going on. And I've got some life wisdom here. And I really want to take care of everyone and fight for our rights. And so I hope that's okay. And thank you for that. You can follow me on Instagram at Susan Bratton. That's my name, like the brat that weighs a ton, but it's all muscle. And you can get on my email newsletter. If you want to ask me anything, I will reply to you. And all you have to do is get on my email newsletter. You go to betterlover.com. I send out 2 emails a week with my hot sex techniques and my favorite things. And just reply to anything. It goes right to me. So I'm here for you if you have questions. It's easier than if you DM me. DMs are hard to respond to because I'm usually looking at that on my phone. And I'm on Threads, and that's really my personal self. If you want to be like, I love that shit she talked about. I like that bitch. I'm gonna follow her on Threads. I'm on Threads. That's my name too. And Personal Life Media. I know that's a long thing to remember because that's the name of my publishing company, but personallifemedia.com, I have 5,000 articles on there. Like anything I've mentioned or anything you have a question about, use the search box. You get 10 or 20 articles where I've talked about whatever that thing is that's bugging you. And then if it's not in there, you can send me an email and I'll answer you or point you to the article that you didn't see or didn't know what to look for or what have you. So that's good. And I think just the other thing was the Sex Life Bucket List is a good place to go. And the G-Spot Joy, gspotjoy.com for the toy guide is good. There's lots of ways to get a hold of me. So I'm here. I'm around. I persist.
Yes, you are incredible. You are incredible.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart.
Yeah.
I feel the same about you.
Thank you.
Kindred spirits.
Yes. I have so much gratitude for you being on the show. And I know for everybody out there, just the gratitude of how available you are making yourself and all the work that you're doing. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. And we're gonna film some fun things in the fall together. We're gonna do a sexy photo shoot together, Nika and I. We're gonna have so much fun. We're gonna play with toys together and do all kinds of things. So stay tuned for the Nika and Susan soiree. Nika and Susan's naughty soiree. Let's call it that.
Yeah, name. Now we need a date.
Exactly. It's up to you, baby. I'm just waiting in the wings for your call.
Oh, for everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us today. This is the ItCast Real Talk on Sex, our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we're creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. This episode is brought to you by the House of Sherelle. And yes, you can check out our online store at triggerhappytoy.com. This work is also brought to you by the International Institute for Sexual Empowerment, a 501c3 nonprofit that's creating a safe space to talk about sex. You can check out our calendar for any upcoming events at nikasherels.com. If you want to get one-on-one coaching with me, go ahead and visit my Calendly to book a free connection session. Ask us anything. We want to hear from you. Susan wants to hear from you. I want to hear from you. We want to support you and give you all the love that we possibly can. So definitely stay in touch. You can get access to our bonus content on Patreon. Learn more about us at theitcast.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.